When it comes to choosing a microcontroller for a hobby project, a maker project, there are quite a few options these days, and because the company Espressif that's come out with all the ESP 8266 and 32 series chips have kind of rocked the world of some of makers, I would say, and the reason is that, I mean, for one, having Wi-Fi is fun, right? But these chips also have a lot more memory. And why that makes a difference? Well, this guy can store 32 kilobytes of program, and I believe it's 4 kilobytes of dynamic memory, so like for variables. However, even the smallest I've got a lineup here. This is the ESP01, pretty much the first revision. And this is a 12 Adafruit Huzzah board, 8266, and this is actually SparkFun 32 thing. So even the smallest one in the family, the 01, has 512 kilobytes of RAM compared to, and that's combined for your program and your variable storage, and this one total has 36 kilobytes, so that's 512 to 36. And what that means is you can, say you're building a web server or something, you can process files that are much larger. On an Arduino, you're very limited to how large of a file you can store on there, and it means that your web interfaces would have to be very simple, and at some point you'll max out. And you could get a bigger Arduino, but even the Mega only has half of what that guy has in program storage and nowhere near there in RAM. And so even with this tiny guy, you can do really complex things like web sockets that require unmasking and kind of decoding messages and a lot of buffering. You can make buffers just of thousands and thousands of bytes and work with that no problem. Now there's plenty of, aside from the ESP series, there's plenty of other microcontrollers around this size, and even some that have Wi-Fi. But what makes the ESP stand out is that they have done a fantastic job of porting the Arduino core over to the ESP, which means that you can write Arduino code and actually run it on the ESP processor, and therefore all of the work that's gone into building the community libraries, all the standard libraries, all the examples, all the documentation, all of that now can carry over into this guy here. So if I want to hook it up to an LCD screen, I don't have to write a library for it. I just use the Arduino library on the ESP. It makes development much faster. You're already kind of standing on the shoulders of giants, and then you also have a bunch of other candy, like clock speeds that are through the roof. I think that the ESP32 has upper clock limit of 240 megahertz compared to the 20 megahertz of this guy. So again, just so much more capability of processing power. And the final thing that I think is going to make a big difference in the near future is with MicroPython being developed, and I actually ported over to work on the ESP 8266 and 32. So I mean, you can write a program in C that works just fine for almost anything, but writing in a high-level language like Python lets you worry less about memory management and focus on your business logic, making your program work. And so yes, that's the reason why a lot of people like Python, is because you can write your programs faster and spend less time debugging seg faults and stuff. So with the MicroPython, I think that is going to make the ESP's overall much more relevant in the near future. So so like so far everything seems to be pointing to that the ESP is kind of the new Arduino in terms of, you know, what's the microcontroller that you would go to for just building a project, like the Arduino used to be. However, there are certainly still use cases where the Arduino will be a better choice than the ESP, because let's say you want just a low power data logger, right? You can have the Atmega 328P running on a few nanoamps and waking up every now and then to do something, and, you know, run it on a battery for weeks or months. But Wi-Fi inherently is just it just really draws a lot of current. To do, you know, it'll be like 300 milliamps maybe, around there, 500, and so yes, you could turn the Wi-Fi off and put it to sleep and get low power, but at that point, you know, your Wi-Fi is off. So if you're doing like a web server, your power draw is going to be much higher. So yes, I think that there are still applications for the Atmega 328P, but in terms of what it means to the you know, all the makers, kind of and the hobbyists, the ESP provides, you know, because the libraries all still work. I think that the ESP provides a better starting point and allows for much more interesting projects. Well, I thank you for watching.